Good morning, Earthlings. Welcome back. Start of a new week. Hope you had a great weekend. Let's jump into our cosmic weather for today. Alright, starting off over at spaceweather.com, our solar wind is currently at 382.3 kilometers per second. Our planetary K index is back down to quiet level 1. In the next 24 hours might get up to a 3. And here we got our sun. Take a closer look up at this for the coronal holes. Now here we got something going here and here. Remember, the thing that we had seen before was the giant triangle. And it was underneath, and when the plasma kind of cleared aside, you could see this big triangle. Well, it does appear to me that there's still something underneath quite large, and it almost seems as if these things are connected, and and anyway, just something to keep an eye on. It just seems like there's something more going on underneath the surface here, just to pay attention to. All right, our chance for a flare is pretty low, 1% for an X class, 5% for an M class, and geomagnetic storm activity is also very low. If you're in the high latitudes, you get a 15% chance you could have some active or minor type of activity. Alright, and as you can see, quiet sun, had some auroras taking place over the Arctic Circle. Alright, moving right along, astrologically, we are in the month of April, but we are still dealing with the sun sign of Aries for a few weeks yet. Aries is a fire sign. Fire represents the ideas of God, ideas, creativity. In tarot cards, it is the card of the Emperor, which is he who oversees, he who collects things and orders things. So it's a pioneering time of putting together our thoughts and ideas and really focusing them into some sort of ordered fashion. So that's all the fiery creativity stuff that's going on. So if you feel this surge underneath you, something pushing you forward, it's that fiery element that's around us. And unconsciously is the moon. And every day, every 2 days, the unconscious changes. So over a course of a month, we have time where we're just having this one particular energy of the conscious mind, and then things underneath keep changing. And today, things have changed right now. As you can see right here is the moon sign, and the moon has gone into Leo. Over the weekend, it was in Cancer, which is a water sign. Now we've gone into Leo, a fire sign. So we already know what fire is from the Aries, but now we've got the fire of Leo. So we've got this double fire, this fire bubbling underneath the surface, but there's a difference because you have one fire is fiery energy that's attributed to Aries, and now we have fiery energy attributed to Leo. Both fiery energies, both creative energies, but they both have different ways in which they express themselves. So you have Aries the ram, which is pioneering, moving forth effort, and then you've got the lion, Leo, which is that creativity, but it's bringing it forth in a kind of different way. It's bringing it forth more from a heart-centered place, because in the tarot cards, it would be the card of strength, and the card deals with righteousness or right useness of energy, and it brings the energy up through the heart space. It's about understanding that we have this energy within us that if we really channel it through the right sources. And so strength of ideas is being able to have that strength to channel all our ideas through that creative heart space to really allow them to go into the universe as creative ideas of love. So that's the idea of what's bubbling beneath the surface. So we have fire and fire working together today. Now our moon, current moon phase here is the waxing moon. We're going back down now. We were just at a full moon just the other day, and so now we're on our way back down. I'm sorry. The full moon's on the way up. Excuse me. I must have had a time phase out this weekend or something. Yeah, so we're on the way up. Full moon will be in another day or so. Alright, it's Monday. Alright, then we have our Mayan Oracle. And the Mayan Oracle shows us that we've made it to the 9th position here. 9th position. The wave spell is the 13-day wave spell. Our theme is the warrior. The warrior asks questions and uses intelligence. And we're at the 9th position. The solar position, solar tone of integrity, or solar tone of intention. So as we get around here with the solar tone of intention, we're at the intention of the warrior. And that place is today the seed. So the seed is about planting an idea, that it flowers and grows. So the seed, which we're at this position here on this graph, we move over to this one and the seed right in the middle. This is our daykin. Above it, the guide is the sun, and they're both the same color. And then you have the supporting cast members, which is on the left-hand side. The antipode, which is the energy that challenges, is the wizard, and it's all about timelessness. And then you have the like-minded energy, is vision, because our seed, what we want to plant, is our vision. And we're challenged by the timelessness of how long is it going to take for this thing that we're planting to really come to fruition. So we're challenged to understand that how timelessness plays itself out. And then underneath we have this supporting cast member, and this is the occult position. And occult is a word that simply means that which is hidden. So the hidden power is synchronicity and navigation, just allowing the synchronicity of life to guide us to where we need to go, trusting that. And above the guide, the sun, is all about enlightenment. Sun shines down bright upon us today. And all of this utilizing the energy of intention, setting forth our intention. I intend something to happen, and we put that energy into the world, and it manifests around us in our lives. The phrase for today, which is made up of a combination of all of this, actually mainly just these here, is I pulse in order to target realizing awareness. I seal the input of flowering with the solar tone of intention. I am guided by the power of universal fire. And on the Gregorian calendar, it is Monday, April 2nd, 2012. Just moving right along this year, aren't we? All right. Got a couple of things here now. First thing we're going to get started with, we're going to go over to NASA. NASA.gov, and this is a update of what's going on in the month of April. I thought this would be a really good way to kind of kick you off into some good energy here. So this is what NASA says is going on. I'm going to get this going.
What's up for April? Ice in the solar system. Hello and welcome. I'm Jane Houston Jones at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, California. Ice is common in our solar system, from ice-covered moons and rings around distant Jupiter and Saturn to deposits at the poles of the moon, and even Mercury. Obviously, ice is present on our own world, too. The only ice off Earth that's easy to see distinctly is the Martian polar cap. Seeing it will take some magnification, though. Both of Mars' poles have water ice, but its south pole is coated with a layer of frozen carbon dioxide. You can see many of these icy worlds when you view the Saturn system this month. Saturn reaches opposition on April 15th and is now visible earlier in the evening and all night long. Through a telescope you'll see the icy rings, Titan, and with a little luck, Enceladus. Saturn's moon Titan is famous for its methane, which can exist as a solid, a liquid, and a gas at Titan's surface temperatures and pressures. But even Titan has water ice and hydrocarbon ice on its surface. Saturn's intriguing moon Enceladus actually spews water ice out of geyser-like vents, ice that orbits Saturn as the E-ring. And Saturn's rings themselves are made up mostly of water ice. Comets are made of ice and dust, frozen water ice, and sometimes ice from other substances, including methane, ammonia, carbon monoxide, sulfur, and hydrogen sulfide. The moons of the outer planets are rich in ice too. Jupiter's moon Europa is blanketed by frozen water ice with a liquid ocean under the ice blanket. Ganymede is the largest moon in our solar system, even larger than Mercury. It's mostly water ice with a rocky core. Callisto is rock and water ice too, although ammonia and carbon dioxide ice may be present. Uranus and Neptune are filled with icy materials like water, ammonia, and methane under incredible heat and pressure. Their moons are ice, rock, conglomerates made mostly of water ice with some ammonia and dry ice. Neptune's moon Triton even has volcano-like geysers that erupt nitrogen gas. Mercury is easy to spot this month, and we say goodbye to Jupiter for a few months, but not before a pretty crescent moon pairing on April 22nd. You can read more about ice in the solar system at solarsystem.nasa.gov/YSS for Year of the Solar System. And you can learn about all of NASA's missions at www.nasa.gov. That's all for this month. I'm Jane Houston Jones.
Flying high above the planet Earth, this is the Cosmic News with Dirk Bradshaw. I am Dirk Bradshaw.
I can neither confirm or deny. I can neither confirm or deny. What's up with their lives?
WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange is planning to run for election to the Australian Senate. The organization announced on Twitter. Assange, an Australian citizen, is out on bail awaiting a British court decision on his appeal against extradition to Sweden on sexual assault allegations. He strongly denies the claims, saying that they are politically motivated and linked to his activities on WikiLeaks, which has published thousands of confidential documents on the internet. WikiLeaks said it appeared that the 40-year-old's current legal situation did not rule him out of running for Australia's upper house. They discovered that it was possible for Julian Assange to run for the Australian Senate while being detained, and Julian has decided to run. WikiLeaks said it will also field a candidate to run directly against Prime Minister Julia Gillard in her lower house electorate of Lalore in Victoria in the elections which are due in 2013. The Australian government has previously blasted WikiLeaks, with Gillard describing its release of U.S. diplomatic cables as grossly irresponsible. Gillard's government ordered Australian police to investigate whether WikiLeaks has broken Australian law, but they reported back in 2010 it had not broken any under their jurisdiction in releasing the cables. Assange, a former computer hacker, is fighting being sent to Stockholm because he fears it would open the way for his extradition to the U.S. to face charges of spying linked to the leaking of classified military documents by U.S. soldier Bradley Manning. Manning has been formally charged for allegedly turning over a trove of classified U.S. documents to WikiLeaks in one of the most serious intelligence breaches in U.S. history. For the Cosmic News Network, I am Dirk Bradshaw. I return you now to First Contact Radio with Joshua Poet. Flying high above the... This is the UFO News with Joshua Poet.
All right, Dirk, thank you very much. This is the UFO News for today. Let me get you set up here. All right, I got 6 stories for you. 6 stories. First story comes to us from a girl on her 12th birthday. Saw a UFO, gave the video to the TV news, and look at this. This is the object in question. Very interesting. We've seen that Cigar-Shaped object before. It looks like it has something coming off here, almost like legs or antennas pointing downward. Alright, says that Penfield, Ohio, March 22nd, 12-year-old girl was outside when something in the sky caught her eye. Take a look at the video she captured on her camera. In the beginning of the video, the object looks like a shark or whale flying in the sky with dorsal fins and a tail. After about 30 seconds in, the girl loses the object, but a few seconds later it reappears, this time metallic looking as it reflects under the sun. It also seems to have a glow around it and circular incidents in the sides. The girl's mother told us she thought her daughter just saw a balloon or blimp. Alright, let's take a look and see. It says, my mother said, after that the footage was coming up with no reasonable explanation. Alright, let's take a look at this. It's like in Bulgaria, 31st of March. This is the shot we've seen before. Looks like the triangle. There's quite a few. That's pretty interesting. Alright, I was smoking at the balcony of my flat. It was impossible not to notice several bright objects in the sky in front of me. My first suppose was artificial glass like Chinese lanterns. However, it's doubtful because there is a mile-wide river and miles of unsettled swampy land where the objects flew. 6 or more bright circular moving spots. Objects move smoothly from northeast to southwest. They slightly changed drop configuration and speed, and no noise was present. I didn't feel anything strange. Fortunately, I had my camera and tripod at hand and emerged to take some photos. Unfortunately, my automation was set to long exposure. Alright. Let's see. No, I don't see anything. Okay, this is just our pictures here. So this is what we have. Alright. Let's take a closer look up at this one here. Very good. Looks, alright, there are triangles. Just a triangle here, and there's separate ones. These are the 3. It looks... Alright, check it out. The link's available at firstcontactradio.com, right-hand side, UFO News. Now, here we have a sighting that took place in Hong Kong. This was on the 1st. Alright. That was an interesting looking set of objects there. They look very interesting. These 3 look like they're part of a singular object. You can see almost as if there's a blackness between the space here. You know, yeah, especially the way it just moved right there. Now, alright. Something to check out. Is this real? Is this fake? It's a good question. Check it out. See what you think. Next story here comes to us from Pic de Bugarach in France. We've seen plenty of these here. This is yet another one, so wanted to show you this. Alright. So certainly a lot going on up here. I mean, we've had now how many? This is the 3rd or 4th time that we've had something going on over here. You see it up in this. Alright, so definitely got something going on in that area of France. Then you have UFO disc over busy traffic in Beijing, China on April 1st. Okay, we've seen this. Kind of looks like the Palladian Bell ship of the Billy Meyer photos. This was reported this morning in Asia. You know, China time is day ahead of USA. The person posted this from a cell phone directly. The UFO was in Beijing, CBD, Jingxian today. I shot in the morning from the CTS overpass. Was too interested in traffic in the main road. When I pushed the shutter, I actually had a UFO. Alright. There you go. That's the location. And this was what was captured. Very interesting indeed. All right, and the very last one, cigar-shaped UFO passes in front of the moon. April 2012. So, again, another one just recently happened. If you look carefully, you will not only notice a shadow pass in front of the moon, but you will also notice the object is long and thin. The object does not flap its wings, nor any wings in the object. All right, let's take a look, see what we think. All right, oh, look at that, how quick that was. All right. There we go. I just slowed it down or stopped it right there. Definitely see something is just passed in front of the moon. So, interesting indeed. Activity taking place out there all the time. All you have to do is look up and you might be amazed at what you see. Alright, that's it. It's our UFO news for today. Time to jump away for a moment to wake up. Here we go.
What if our government was responsible for some of the greatest crimes against this nation? Would you really want to know? These are big questions, but these questions deserve answers. It's time to demand the truth.
People shouldn't be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid.
9/11 was an inside job. Kennedy was killed by the CIA. Jimmy Carter saw UFO. Answers to secrets you need to know. So wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. The evidence is overwhelming. Step past your fear, take a look. Illuminati lies keep growing, but they're illusion from your eyes. And wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. What would our founding fathers say if they were alive today? Must be turning in their graves. Redcoats are coming, Big Brother's watching. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. What if I land and two if I see? And I and the opposite shore will be ready to ride and spread the alarm through every Middlesex village and farm. Whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it. When a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Patriots arise. It's time to demand the truth.
Alright, that song was called Wake Up. You may have heard it a time or two. I've played it, though, every time I've done a show. So, I'm going to keep playing it because it's a song about waking people up. And if you're woken up and you're listening to this show, play the song for somebody else. Play all kind of wake-up songs for them. There's a lot of them out there. There's a lot of material to wake people up. Alright. Moving right ahead, we're going to get into some Ron Paul news here for a couple of stories. First story, this is Doug Wead talking about the Ron Paul campaign. Here we go.
The race for the Republican presidential nomination goes on and on. Despite Mitt Romney's huge lead, bolstered this week by another big-hitting endorsement, that of Florida Senator Marco Rubio, the other three candidates show little sign of pulling out. But why? What's going on in the other campaigns? Presidential historian Doug Wead is strategic advisor to one of them, to Ron Paul. And he joins me now, direct from a meeting in Ron Paul's office. Doug, welcome back. It's good to have you with us again.
Thank you. It's an honor.
Bless you. The choice of the majority seems to be pretty clear. The Republicans do seem to be plumping for Mitt Romney, and some of them are saying, why don't the other three candidates withdraw? Tell us why they won't.
Well, because the numbers, the numbers are off. The numbers that you read in the New York Times or the Associated Press are way off.
How off?
We can't run a campaign to fulfill. Well, they underreport what Santorum is getting, they underreport what we in the Ron Paul campaign are getting, and they overreport the number of delegates that Mitt Romney is getting. I can give you a clear example of that in Iowa, and I'm giving you this example because it's on the public record. I don't want to give away too much. But in Iowa, they just elected a new state chairman, and he was the Ron Paul co-chairman for Iowa, for Ron Paul for president. They threw out the Mitt Romney chairman. Now, according to the New York Times and the Associated Press, Ron Paul's going to get one of the delegates from Iowa to the Republican National Convention. Romney's going to get 14. Santorum's going to get 12. Well, if we're only going to get one, how did we throw out his chairman and elect our own? That's the body, the same body that will select the delegation that goes to Tampa. And I could give you state after state, Colorado, North Dakota, Alaska, Nevada, where the same thing is going on. So the media is assuming that these beauty contests are defining the delegation that goes to the Republican National Convention. It's not true.
So what in fact do you think the lead that Mitt Romney really has is?
Well, the short answer is we don't know perfectly because deals are being made in these conventions. In another month, we're going to hear what those deals are. And when I say deals, let me give you an example. I'll give you a mythical state that is meeting, and the Ron Paul coalition may have a third of the delegates, the Santorum people another third, and the Romney people another third. And it's who cuts the deal. If the Romney people can go to the Santorum people and say, we'll let you split the delegation with us, we'll lose out. But if we succeed in going to the Santorum people, Romney would lose out. So a lot of it remains up in the air, but this is not a done deal. It tends to look like it's a done deal because the national media at this point usually will stampede the other candidates and say, get out, get out. But the math is not there for Mitt Romney yet. There's no reason for us to get out.
So that's the point about the figures and so on. So you think that none of the three candidates that we've been talking about, nobody will withdraw before the last days, do you think?
I don't think they will. For example, Newt Gingrich, he's the fourth candidate that we didn't talk about. We don't want him out. Santorum doesn't want him out. Ron Paul doesn't want him out because if he leaves, there's the possibility that some of his delegates will move to Romney, and we will admit that Romney's in the lead. So every delegate he picks up makes a difference. So we want Newt Gingrich to stay right in there and hold the base of those few delegates that he has. A brokered convention is still unlikely in modern history. Things happen too fast. There are brokered campaigns. You don't have to have brokered conventions. But mathematically, it is still very possible. And if it happens, it will be a show, I'll tell you.
What would you say the tactics of the various candidates will be? And we haven't mentioned Newt Gingrich yet either, because obviously he's another one to consider. And you want them all. The clear thing you've said is you want them all to stay in. It increases your chances.
Yes, it increases the chances of a brokered convention. And the brokered convention, as I said, is unlikely, but mathematically it's possible.
And what about the white knight strategy? People dreaming of a white knight who's going to come riding in on his charger and so on. It's not going to be Jeb Bush now because he says he's going with Mitt Romney and so on. But is it possible that there's a white knight out there somewhere who could charge in at this stage?
It's possible, and in American history in previous years, that was often the solution when you had a brokered convention. But it's very, very unlikely today. In this day and age, when a candidate is vetted, when enough people have committed their money and resources to the four that are in, it's more likely that one of these four will be the candidates. And Rick Santorum, you can't rule him out. He has touched a nerve here. Even the Obama people are responding to it, and that relates to church and state, because the walls become porous. And, for example, in the little city of Canyonville, Oregon, the local city, because it's not getting tax money from the nonprofits, it's doubling the water bill in Canyonville. So there are these surcharges, there are these ways that the state, that the government is trying to get money from the nonprofits. So Santorum has touched something here that the Obama administration itself is sensitive to, and Romney can't really get into this issue much because of the controversy about his faith. So it's interesting dynamics are playing out right now.
Right. And Time magazine here has floated the idea that Ron Paul might withdraw if Mitt Romney chooses Mr. Paul's son, Rand, for vice president. Have you heard about that?
I wouldn't hold my breath that that's going to happen. But yes, I've heard that rumor. Ron Paul's a very principled person. He's been in Washington for 22 years. He hasn't taken bribes. The lobbyists can't get to him. Women haven't been able to get to him. He's been untouchable. He's been pure. Won't go on a junket because he thinks it's a taxpayer-paid trip. Won't participate in the congressional pension plan. That's his appeal. He's this eccentric, Gandhi-like figure that you can't touch with the normal bribes that people respond to. So I don't think that anything Mitt Romney offers him will move him. He will move to Romney if he feels it's in the best interest of the country and his own cause.
You always look cheerful whenever we talk, Doug, but maybe it's a sign here of what Ron Paul's up to that you look even more cheerful now than you did a few weeks ago. Thank you very much for being with us.
Could be.
Thanks
Thank you
a lot.
very much, David.
All right, good news coming from the Ron Paul campaign. Good interview. Now, here is Ron Paul himself talking about the Republican Party and how he's trying to save it. Here we go.
We're going to go now to Clute, Texas, to hear from another Republican contender, Congressman Ron Paul. Mr. Paul, welcome to Face the Nation. Let me talk to you first a little bit about what the Vice President said about Afghanistan, because basically what he said is we're going to stay the course there. Now, I know a lot of people in your party don't particularly agree with you on foreign policy, but has Afghanistan been worth our time and treasure?
No, absolutely not. We went in there improperly. It was a waste. There's not going to be a happy ending. And I think the Republicans have dug a hole for themselves because they're trying to militarize the president and say we should do more. And yet 75% of the American people said we've had enough. It's cost us too much money. It's time to come home. But this was Obama's cherished position. He says this is the good war. And now we've been there 10 years. It's a sad state of affairs. And I think it's when you see innocent people dying, when you see all the collateral damage, you see 16 people getting murdered, that's a tragedy. But with thousands of innocent people who are dying, they just call them collateral damage because we endlessly drop these bombs around and all the people who died in Iraq. No, it's time to change the policy. And this is my argument, is the American people want to change. They're tired of it. It's costing us too much money. But we're not offering anything differently. And so if this is to be an issue, the other Republican candidates offer nothing more than a continuation of the status quo or actually increasing the militarism that we have around the world. So I think that's a losing position.
What are your plans now? I mean, it seems clear to me, and you can tell me I'm wrong, but it seems clear to me that there's no way you're going to get the nomination now. Do you intend to continue hanging around?
Obviously, yes. You know, the conventional wisdom is there's no guarantee it knows. You were talking earlier on about Romney being the candidate, but that's the conventional wisdom, and I would admit that. But no, the votes haven't been counted. There's quite a few states right now. There's 6 or 7 states that we're doing quite well through the delegate process. So we don't even know who's getting what so far, and who knows what will happen on the first vote at the convention. So I would say that it's very encouraging, because I am talking to a whole generation which is expanding, you know, as far as age goes. But when I can get 5,200 people out on a college campus is wildly enthusiastic to hear the message of liberty and freedom and less wars and curtailing the Federal Reserve, there's no way I'm going to quit speaking out on this. And there's no way I'm going to give up on the effort to get the Republicans back to their roots. You know, in some ways they say, well, why don't you give up and this will help the Republican Party. The truth is, I'm trying to save the Republican Party from themselves, because they want perpetual wars. They don't care about presidents who assassinate American citizens. They don't care about searching our houses without search warrants. And these are the kind of things that people care about. And if the Republicans would take a different position, they may save themselves. But right now, I see they're going to be in big trouble. What about the deficit? Sure, the Democrats spend too much money, but the Republicans said, well, our proposal is to balance the budget in 30 years. I mean, people are laughing at that. So I say cut the budget by $1 trillion. This idea that you have a debt crisis, the worst in the history of the world, and we won't cut spending, we have a problem.
You know, I must say, hearing you this morning, you sound like somebody that might not support even the Republican candidate come the fall. Is there any way or any chance, or are you thinking about maybe heading up a third-party effort after the Republican convention?
No, I don't have any plans for that. I didn't hear Gingrich mention that he was thinking about it either. But no, I have no plans to do that. I'm trying to win the nomination. The votes haven't been counted. I think the views I hold are very, very popular. I think we represent the future. The other candidates represent the past. The president represents the past. We represent the future about what freedom really brings us, free markets and sound money and civil liberties and a sensible foreign policy. And this idea, they're living with their head in the sand to think that there's not a debt crisis. There is a debt crisis, and you have to cut spending. This idea that you need to spend more money and print more money when you get into trouble, I mean, it's absolutely bizarre. And I think common sense tells us that you just can't keep spending. This is why you talked a little bit about this discord between Republicans and Democrats. It's because they refuse to admit there's nothing left in the Treasury, and they're fighting. Before, we were very rich. The middle class was rich, and the revenues came in. But there's nothing there, and this is why this conflict is going to get much worse until we admit the truth.
Let me ask you this quickly. I think I heard somebody say you at Public has said that you'd like to be on the ticket with Mitt Romney if he gets it. Would you?
I haven't said anything like that, and I don't see how that would happen. There's too many disagreements. I like Mitt Romney as a person. I think he's a dignified person, and I have no common ground on economics. I mean, he isn't worried about the Federal Reserve, and he isn't worried about the foreign policy. He doesn't talk about civil liberties. So I'd have a hard time to expect him ever to invite me to campaign with him.
Would you vote for him, or would you support him?
No, I haven't made that decision yet. I'm still campaigning.
You haven't made the decision on whether you would support Mitt Romney if he gets the nomination?
No, I have not.
All right. Well, Mr. Paul, thank you very much for being with us.
I don't know, is it just me, but the endless stupid questions that the mainstream keeps asking the establishment media, are you going to drop out? Will you support? How many times does he have to say, no, he's not dropping out? It's just incredible. You have to wonder, what are they thinking? How could they ask the same things over and over and over for months now? Are you going to drop out? Are you going to support me? No, I'm not going to drop out. And he asked this throughout the time. It's just, I could see how frustrating it must be for Dr. Paul to be out there and have to deal day in, day out, because they're constantly trying to drag him down. He wants to get the press, but then he goes and gets the press, and then the press, it's nonsense. Nonsense, I tell you. All right, moving right along. Here's a big question that's being asked out in the world. Well, actually, by the world, I mean the United States. Well, the world, because the troops around the world are asking this of themselves. An article comes to us from the Intel Hub. Will U.S. troops fire on American citizens? That is the big question. Who would believe that in the year 2012 one would have to ask if the U.S. military would fire on American citizens? The question of troop involvement in an upcoming martial law scenario that is being predicted is no imaginary possibility, nor is it a conspiracy theory. Other tougher questions are being discussed, as will the U.S. government confiscate gold and silver in an economic collapse? Will there be a roundup of American citizens to be put in FEMA camps? Many believe that the United Nations will be tasked to step in and keep the peace in any civil unrest or economic collapse. This is a strong possibility. Readers should familiarize themselves with the term hidden in plain sight. How this applies to the United Nations is simple. The United Nations' purpose is to be the world government that will control nearly every aspect of the global population. For years, the military strength has increased, and they are often tasked with upholding law and order in conflicts around the world. Research into the UN and prove to yourself that this is the case. The UN is the governing body of the New World Order, hidden in plain sight. Investigate their corporate operation and number of sites, and you will discover they now have a World Weather Service. An update to this article will list the number of organizations that United Nations have established. You will be amazed. Not to mention that their highest man position happens to be in the same area where the fallen angels came down to earth so long ago, in Mount Hermon. Alright, now moving right along. Sheriff Joe, this is a update on what's going on with their, hey, this investigation is not stopped. It's going on. It's going to continue to go on, and it's just got to be a matter of time till the mainstream picks this story up, because it's growing bigger every day. This story is as big as Watergate, if not more. Here we go.
The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.
This person, is this a person of interest, possibly, this registrar, Mr. PhD, Mr. Alvin?
Onaka?
Yeah.
He's not a person of interest, but to date he has never come forth and said that he personally certified the document.
Tell us a little bit about segues that your team has made to, follow up on different leads outside of, Arizona, for instance.
What transpired is, and we were accused of, especially I believe it was by the Attorney General of Hawaii, that said that we never reached out to talk to him, and that is 100% true. The reason being, in the beginning, before we decided to alert the sheriff that we believed we had a forgery, this was nothing more than inquisition. We were inquiring what happened here. Now that we had what we had and we presented it to the sheriff, it's now turned into a full-fledged law enforcement investigation. Now the steps to contact various agencies and request for help happens from this point under that authority. To do it before that would have had zero consequence. We would have gotten nothing out of it.
Okay. Now tell us, we're going into, it's a new area for a lot of people, and it's really digital forensics.
Yes.
Okay. This is traditional law enforcement. You're dealing with physical, things that you can touch, feel, you can test with chemicals. Tell us a little bit about your approach and how you feel about this new area, which is digital forensics, which you're engaged in.
What I've learned is people younger than me are a lot better at this than I am. They understand this to a T. This is extremely complicated information. To put one of these together, you can't just be a quote, novice. Even though I believe this was poorly done, you cannot be a novice. You have to have an in-depth understanding of the technical aspects of the software and what happens here. People that work with this stuff for a living, graphic experts. What I learned, I didn't know this when it happened, when this document was produced, within 30 minutes, graphic designers were all questioning its authenticity. It's because they worked with the software. Digital forensics is a science unto itself, but we also live in a very scary time. You cannot rely on your eyes anymore to believe what you see.
Good point. Okay, I'm just going to move down a little bit. Now, is there
copy of Obama's birth certificate available for you to look at? Are you guys in the process of, sequestering it?
To my understanding, if there is a hard copy document, no one other than select individuals from the state of Hawaii profess to have seen it. The state of Hawaii has some very stringent laws regarding vital statistics. And the only way that we would have an ability to see it would be to go to that state and request through court order the ability to see it. And even if we were granted permission to see it by a court, even by directive, the Department of Health in Hawaii could maintain the position of retaining the privilege not to produce it. And that's happened in some other court cases and unrelated incidents of other birth certificates where they just refuse to produce the document. As far as our position, a hard copy paper document is not something we want to see. I can make this into a hard copy. What the public has to understand is this becomes a hard copy at the press of a print button.
The short form birth certificate released in 2008 was uploaded to Obama's website. You familiar with that, and what are your thoughts?
I'm familiar with it. We did not do any extensive research on it. I do understand, though, at some point in time, other birth certificates were forged and actually uploaded. There's some speculation out there that a forged document by someone confessing to forge the document actually provided it to the White House. We haven't followed that up. Our purview right now is just to look at this long form birth certificate because it is what the White House has put up on their website and the president himself pointing to it saying, this is proof positive of my birth.
And you as a law enforcement deputized or professional, whatever, in your position as a law enforcement agent, working for the people, at what point, where would you stand now if you seems to be a forged document, right?
Yes.
So the next step is where would you go from there? In theory, where could you go if this was a crime?
If this was a crime anywhere that's in my jurisdiction?
I didn't do my selective
Sure.
service.
If this were in my jurisdiction, obviously you want to find the individuals responsible for it. You would start the very last person that handled the document. It would be the person that uploaded it to the server that the White House released to the world. That would be the place you start, and you just simply work backwards from there. And how did you get it? How did you get it? How did you get it? And eventually you would find the person. That's provided there's cooperation. What would normally happen in a situation like that is people will either speak or they will tell you they want an attorney, and they'll end it right there. And then you have to find other means, other ways to do it. In a utopian world in law enforcement, that's how I would like to do it. I'd like to interview everybody that ever came in contact with this document, and I don't want to call it a document anymore, this file. It's an electronic file. It is not a paper document.
It's important to make that distinction.
Very big distinction. This was put together so the public themselves, this was put together so someone would look at this on a computer screen and go, oh, that is what it's supposed to look like. It must be real. That's the deception in this. This isn't real. This will never be real. This is a fabrication. This is false. And that's the fraud that's not only committed here in Maricopa County, but it's the fraud that's been committed across the nation.
The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.
There you go. A fraud. So this is what's going on behind the scenes. Isn't it amazing that the mainstream media chooses not to talk about this story? That the sitting president has forged documents that through forensic investigation have determined that they are absolutely forged, that the crime has been committed. And it's amazing that it's not being reported. But now you know. So share the story. Put it, if you got a Facebook account, put it up there through any of the social networking, Twitter it. Just share the story, because the more that we all share these stories with each other and people that we know, the more that this information gets out there. Because this is important, and eventually the mainstream media is going to have to pick it up, because then they're going to feel stupid because they're getting scooped by all kind of other places, and that's one thing that they don't like to have happen to them. They don't like to feel like someone's getting over on them, getting the stories before they do. So, all right, moving right along, Arizona continues to remain in the news. They've passed an internet censorship bill This comes to us from Steve Watson at InfoWars. The state legislature of Arizona has passed a bill that vastly broadens telephone harassment laws and applies them to the internet and other means of electronic communication. The law, which is being pushed under the guise of anti-bullying campaign, would mean that anything communicated or published online that was deemed to be offensive by the state, including editorials, illustrations, and even satire, could be criminally punished. The comic book Legal Defense Fund breaks down Arizona House Bill 2549. The bill is sweepingly broad and would make it a crime to communicate via electronic means speech that is intended to annoy, offend, harass, or terrify, as well as certain sexual speech, because the bill is not limited to one-to-one communication. HB 2549 would apply to the internet whole, thus criminalizing all manner of writing, cartoons, and other protected material the state finds offensive or annoying. First Amendment activist group Media Coalition has written to Arizona Governor Jan Brewer, urging her not to sign the legislation into law. Well, good old Jan Brewer, she just likes to, she doesn't seem to be for the people so much, does she? With some of the things that she says, she seems to support the lies and the corruption out there, which means we need to get a politician in that's, fair, truthful, honest. All right. So Arizona, that's your next mission. Get somebody in that's going to do the job and not someone that's going to sell you out. All right, very last story here. This is a piece. Propaganda founding father Edward Bernays is exposed. This is a piece presented here from InfoWars. And it's important that you know this because we talk about propaganda all the time, media propaganda. And it's a very real experience. It happens all the time, and it isn't something that just started yesterday or a week ago. This has been going on for many, many, many years, and it's happened, and it's been so successful that most people don't realize this is what's really gone on unless they take time to research it. So here's a little bit of that research for you so you can understand a bit of the process.
Well, speaking of propaganda, we have a huge, monumental piece of propaganda that will be at a theater near you very shortly. But first, we're going to go to a piece from our own Darren McBreen. It's about Mr. Bernays, Mr. Propaganda. And if you're familiar with fluoride, it was at one point rat poison, and Mr. Bernays made it this shiny element that now goes onto your shiny teeth and into your tap water. Let's roll that piece.
To better understand the current state of modern-day media manipulation, we must first look at the father of propaganda, Edward Bernays. His influence on the 20th century rivaled that of his uncles, Sigmund Freud, as Bernays pioneered the idea of crowd psychology with Freud's psychoanalytical ideas in what would become a new political ideal on how to control the masses. In his 1928 book, Propaganda, Bernays wrote, "If we understand the mechanisms and motives of the group mind, it is now possible to
control and regiment the masses according to our will without them knowing it."
He called it the engineering of consent and proposed that those who manipulate
this unseen mechanism of society constitute an invisible government, which is the true ruling power of our country.
It was Bernays who introduced the corporate giants to crowd psychology methods and polished techniques to manipulate society. He convinced the population to buy on impulse things they didn't even need by linking mass-produced goods to their own unconscious desires. The tobacco industry hired Bernays to persuade women to take up smoking, and the Alcoa Aluminum Company asked him to drive the campaign for the national fluoridation of our water supply. A consumerist culture was born, and the U.S. government took notice. In addition to famous corporate giants, Bernays also began working for the federal government. They adopted his technique of manufacturing ever-present dangers and then maintaining a constant state of fear to give those in power greater control of what Bernays called the mass mind.
Edward Bernays, who's the father of modern advertising and propaganda. He literally wrote the book, Propaganda. Joseph Goebbels, on record, the Nazi propaganda minister, used a lot of his information and twisted it to his own designs. Bernays was the chief psychological warfare expert for more than 20 years, advising the Department of War. He advised them to call it defense. Don't be honest anymore. Call it the Department of Defense, because you're actually going to run giant imperial slaughter operations.
All right, very fascinating. So there you go. That's a little bit of history. A little bit of history for you of where media propaganda came from. So, you know, go out there, do a little more research on your own. You know, it's important not always to take everything I say at face value. You know, I do my research, I put this information out there, but you should go and find out for yourself too. You should read, and you know, we all want to be able to do the same thing. I mean, we all have the same tools. That's the amazing part is, you know, as I sit here right now and as you're at your homes, you've got a computer in front of you, you have access to all of the same information at your fingertips. And so does the mainstream media, which is strange how they seem to not know what's going on in the world. How is it that they could have the same information available? Because you know that they have teams of computer people working there doing searches. You know they have to be aware of what's going on, so they're choosing to ignore information that's out there. And you know, by researching, you'll see, you'll stay on top of what's going on. All right, very last thing, as we do at the end of each and every show, is we have our meditation for today. So go ahead and close your eyes, relax. All right. For today's meditation, let us imagine that we are walking up the side of a mountain. And it's a pretty high mountain. And as we climb step by step, we make progress. And every now and then there's some loose dirt beneath our feet, or maybe some boulders rolled down your way. You have to crawl across some bushes or climb over a tree that has fallen in your path. And eventually you make it to the top. And you look down the path that you just climbed up, and it's kind of hard to see the whole path because it's twists and turns under the tree line where you cannot see, and then up again, and you see all of the things that you crawled and climbed around. And you realize at that point how hard you actually worked to get to where you are. You realize the effort that you had to apply. And as you look and you see and are aware of the effort, you become more appreciative of what it is that you are able to do when you put your mind to it. And you look over and see the vision that you can see from the top of this mountain. You can see all around, far, far into the distance, in all directions. And everything around looks so small. Everything looks so small. And you realize how small those problems of everything down there actually is in comparison to the big picture. And you think that you might like to stay up on top of the mountain because from this perspective the problems are so small. But you know you need to go back down into the world. You cannot live upon the mountain. So you travel back down. And as you do, imagine that all of your chakras are activated, because you know in the world and all the crazy energy down there, you want to make sure that you're energetically protected and awake. So starting with the chakra at the bottom of your spine, color red, make sure it's activated. Just imagine the color red at the bottom of your spine. And then raise that energy up higher to the belly button area. And now imagine that color red turning to orange. And then up higher, go to just below the rib cage and imagine that light there turning yellow. And up to the heart, imagine the color green. To the throat, imagine the color blue. To the third eye, imagine the color violet. And finally to the top of the head, crown chakra, imagine the color indigo. Continuing on up into the cosmos' bright white light. Imagine all the energy flowing through your body. Allow that energy to overflow and form protection around you. Let that energy flow out into the world to help send light and protection to all others, to your environment. And let's just think a good thought for everybody in the world. Send love to everybody in the world. And with that, we'll bring our energy and attention back to the present moment on the count of 3. 3, coming back to the present moment filled with confidence. 2, coming back to the present moment filled with faith. And 1, coming back to the present moment happy, healthy, and whole. Happy, healthy, and whole. And there you have it. That's the end of our show. Prayer, meditation, the whole kit and caboodle. Thanks for being here. Have a great week. I'm going to be back tomorrow with more news and information. Dirk will be back with more cosmic news. Just be safe. Keep learning out there. There's a lot to learn every day. The more that we learn, the better off we are. I'll talk to you soon. Peace. I'm out of here.